Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. Following our video on the mess that is Europe's groupings and alliances, we thought that it would be the right time to dive deeper into some of them. So in this video, we're taking a look at the Council of Europe, Europe's oldest political body, and one of the most confusingly named and controversial. As you probably already know, this is TLDR EU, the channel where we break down not only the European Union, but also the states that make up the continent, from France's porn ban to Sweden's COVID strategy, where they never locked down at all. If that sounds up your street, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Also, we're super close to 100,000 subscribers, so we'd love your support. Thanks. The Council of Europe. No, not the European Council, and no, not the Council of the European Union, actually predates the entire European Union structure, having been formed in the wake of the Second World War in 1949 to ensure the political reconstruction of Europe based on a set of fundamental values. Today consisting of 47 members encompassing over 830 million people in Europe and beyond. Now, it's undeniable that the Council of Europe has a confusing name, but things don't get much better when it comes to other aspects. The Council attempts to differentiate itself from the European Union with its own flag, anthem, and logo. The now iconic flag, created by the Council in 1955, consists of a circle of 12 gold stars against a vivid blue background. If that sounds and looks similar, that's because it is. The European Union adopted the very same flag in 1985, meaning that the two completely different and often confused institutions now have the same flag. Great. On the anthem front, the Council adopted the prelude to Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in 1972, quickly followed yet again by the European Union in 1986. But where this confusion becomes somewhat politically dangerous and sensitive arises from the Council's competencies and its defining features, the European Convention on Human Rights and the European Court of Human Rights. Following the destruction and decimation of World War II, political leaders wished to make sure that an atrocity of that scale could never happen again. In spite of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights drawn up by the United Nations, Europe wanted a legally enforceable version of its own, a proposal championed by Winston Churchill, affirming to the then Congress of Europe, "In the centre of our movement stands the idea of a Charter of Human Rights, guarded by freedom and sustained by law." What is key with the European version of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is that it's backed fully by the force of law, with its own court able to rule over and above domestic courts, the European Court of Human Rights. And so, the European Convention on Human Rights was born. The Convention grants 13 basic rights and freedoms: the right to life, the prohibition of torture, the prohibition of slavery and forced labour, the right to liberty and security, the right to a fair trial, the right to no punishment without law, the right to respect in private and family life, the freedom of thought, conscience and religion, the freedom of expression, the freedom of assembly and association, the right to marry, the right to an effective remedy, and the prohibition of discrimination. Crucially, anyone can bring a case to the European Court of Human Rights once all domestic avenues have been exhausted, a prominent example of which revolves around the most expensive cake in UK history. In May 2014, Gareth Lee wanted to take a cake to an event organised by campaigners for same-sex marriage in Northern Ireland. So he placed an order with Ashes, a bakery owned by Christian husband and wife Daniel and Amy MacArthur. The order itself was for a cake iced with a depiction of the cartoon characters Bert and Ernie and the words "Support Gay Marriage." The flavour of the cake, we sadly don't know. The order was duly processed, but a matter of days later, Gareth was informed that the Ashes could not in conscience produce such a cake. Gareth subsequently brought a claim against Daniel and Amy MacArthur for direct and indirect discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation, a claim supported by the Equality Commission for Northern Ireland. The case quickly hit the headlines and began to pick up steam, with the county court agreeing with Gareth that he had been the victim of direct discrimination. An appeal was invariably launched, and on the 24th of October 2016, the Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal, agreeing with the county court that refusing to produce the cake was a case of direct discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation. Yet again, another appeal was launched, this time to the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, the highest court in the land, who concluded otherwise. According to them, Gareth Lee had not been the victim of discrimination, as the bakery would have refused to supply this cake to anyone, whatever their personal characteristics, emphasising their objection was to the message of the cake, not the personal characteristics of Mr. Lee. Having exhausted all domestic avenues, now comes in the part of the European Court of Human Rights. In 2019, Gareth Lee instructed his lawyers to take the case to the European Court of Human Rights, where the case is still ongoing, some 6 years after starting. Anyway, neither the convention nor the court has anything to do with the European Union, although a session to the European Council of Human Rights is seen as all but an official condition for joining and staying a member of the European Union. Following comments made by then Home Secretary Theresa May in 2016, there was significant discussion as to whether a country could be a member of the EU but not a member of the Convention of Human Rights, and in turn under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights. While some believe that withdrawal from the European Court of Human Rights and continued membership of the EU wouldn't be incompatible, the Commission's official line back in 2007 was that respect for fundamental rights as guaranteed by the European Convention on Human Rights is an explicit obligation for the Union under Article 6 of the Treaty of the European Union, though it does seem that this debate rumbles on to today. Back to the European Council itself. There are 6 key posts or groups in the Council: the Secretary-General, the Commissioner for Human Rights, the Committee of Ministers, the Parliamentary Assembly, the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, and the Conference of International NGOs. Let's briefly take a look at each of them in turn. Like the UN, the Council of Europe appoints a single person to take overall responsibility for the organisation's work and overall direction, the Secretary-General. The Commissioner for Human Rights, as the name suggests, takes an individual role and duty to promote human rights and identify legal shortcomings. The Committee of Ministers is the main decision-making body, composed of the foreign ministers and representatives of the relevant member states. The Parliamentary Assembly consists of 324 MPs, taken from member states that meet 4 times a year. The Assembly debates matters of current concern and will offer guidance to the Committee of Ministers. Almost identical to the European Parliament, political groupings are not based on nationality or the country of origin, but rather ideology, with MPs sitting under cross-international banners rather than their individual parties once in the Assembly. The Congress of Local and Regional Authorities is a forum of 648 locally elected representatives, positioned to support new member states and presenting some 150,000 local and regional authorities. And finally, the Conference of International Non-Governmental Organisations, which represents civil society and promotes participatory democracy. Besides the European Convention on Human Rights, the Council publicly attributes a number of achievements to itself, ranging from the wide-scale abolition of the death penalty to non-discrimination and the fight against racism and gender equality. So what do you think? Is the Council of Europe something that should be championed more widely? Has the confusion between it and the European Union dampened its mission? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos like Divya Khanna, Ashley Medhurst and Victor Ching, then be sure to back us on Patreon. The link to that in the description.